0 to 60 can define a performance car, but it's the fastest 60 to 0 that's the aim of Tarok's brakes. From road cars to race cars, circuits, special stages, or the autostrada, nothing reduces speed like Tarok's brakes. Italy gave the world the art of Da Vinci and Michelangelo. Tarok's has given drivers the art of stopping. For more information and to acquire your own masterpiece, visit tarox.co.uk. Yes, it's me, Mike Stone, and this is the Backseat Driver podcast. It's the fastest, it's the friendliest, and it's for all the family. The Gas Shocks 116 Trophy and 120 Coupe Cup are the fastest growing race series in the UK, taking in 6 one-hour races and 8 sprints at all the top circuits. Visit 116trophy.com to find out more and get yourself behind the wheel. From a pot of tea to TT motorbikes. From a classic English breakfast to a full serving of classic cars. Bridge House Tea Rooms is the Northwest premier classic car meeting location for cars, bikes, tractors and owners clubs. So no matter what your automotive appetite might be, visit Bridge House Farm Tea Rooms on their Facebook page or call John and Alicia on 07980 444 221 for show details and to reserve your own table and parking space. I'd like to introduce the Backseat Driver show a man who has been involved with motorsport most of his life, but not in the way most of my guests tend to be involved. Cameraman, in many ways what you might call an adventurer, he has aimed a camera lens at motorsport across the world, but now he's decided to come back to the north of England. And a Yorkshire lad at heart, I'd like to introduce Paul Hargreaves. Paul Hargreaves, welcome to the Backseat Driver.
Hi, Mark.
I'm sat here with a book, your book in my hands, A Century of Motoring Memories. And it encapsulates a life with cars and with cameras. But how did all this start?
How did what start? The driving, the camera work?
All the lot of it.
Well, I'm lucky. I've driven now for 68 years, I think.
Yeah.
I've now had to stop because of my eyesight. But I was started early. I started at the age of 13. I had a very late puberty, and at 13 I was still only about 5 foot. And at school, we had to take exercise every afternoon. And if you weren't big enough to play rugby, which I wasn't, I could play racket games and fives. But 2 options were to take a 2-mile run, which you did on your own, or you could go down to the school farm and work there. And the beauty of the school farm was they had tractors to drive.
Yeah.
So from about 13, I started driving tractors. And about the same sort of time, at home we had a drive which was perhaps about 150, 170 yards long, with a 90-degree bend in the middle and then a steep downhill bit.
Oh, it's always tempting.
Always tempting. Fortunately, it splayed out at the bottom. You went through the gates, then it splayed out as drives often do, and there's room in that splayed area to turn the car around and come back without ever venturing on the public road. So I used to do that over and over again in my mother's car, Hillman Imp.
Yeah.
So by the time I was ready to go on the road, clutch control, all that sort of business was all second nature.
Yep.
And then at school, we were lucky enough to have a driving club. A boy above my age called Lance Callingham was the son of somebody called Nora Docker. Now, Nora Docker had been Nora Callahan. She'd married she had been a barmaid.
Yeah.
She'd married this millionaire called Clement Callahan, had this son, but he died. And then she'd married Sir Bernard Docker, who was chairman of BSA.
Yeah.
And about that sort of time, he bought Daimler.
Yes, because I mean, there were the famous Docker Daimlers.
Well, yes, I've got a photograph of that in my book.
Yeah.
One of them, she came out with, Lady Docker, Nora, came out with a design every year.
Yeah.
I think the year in question was the zebra year with zebra-skinned upholstery. But Lance, her son, they had more money than they know what to do with in those days, and she was full of, always in the gossip columns, that sort of woman. Anyway, they presented the school with what was a ready-built driving school. We had a Daimler stripped down in the workshop, so you could take the engine out, rebuild the engine. It was on axle stands, so you could actually work the transmission with the engine running indoors. We also had 2 cars for the road, a Daimler Conquest and a Lanchester, whatever the equivalent was.
Yeah.
And we also, on top of this present they're given to the school, we were also taught to drive, or in my case, trained for roadcraft by the Hendon Police Driving School.
Oh, yeah.
Which was just up the road.
Yeah.
And actually, as part of that training, I actually drove down Oxford Street on a Saturday afternoon. So passing my test was pretty damn easy, and I was a fully fledged motorist by the age of 17 and 3 months.
Yeah. What was the first car?
I bought a car from a friend at school. It was £5 Austin 7, which had the body removed and had a sort of plywood sports car arrangement.
Another Austin 7 special.
Yeah. The story of that car, even though it only lasted a day, takes almost a day to tell, but I'll go if you want.
Shorten it.
Well, my father was an insurance broker, and I daren't tell him that I bought a car, so I got it insured at some place in west of Acton, I think it was, some firm advertising in Exchange and Mart. I was honest as the day is long, so when I went to tax it, I went to Aylesbury. The car was based in some village in deepest Buckinghamshire, and the boy who sold it to me had gone off on camp, Army, Air Force, Cadet Force camp, which we used to have after the end of the summer term. But because I was leaving that year, I didn't go to the camp. So I was on my own. I went to Aylesbury to tax it. It was the 28th of July or 27th of July. I thought, bugger me, I'm not going to pay for a whole month just for 3 days. I'll tax it from the 1st of August.
Yeah.
Filled the form in, paid the money, and the man says, right, we'll put the disc in the post to you. I thought, oh, Christ, that's no good. I want no disc to it.
Yes.
So I then had to spend more money taxing it for 3 days. Then I had to get out to this village, which meant a train journey. And then I had to, I got to the station, which was nearest to the village, and the station master said, I'll get you a taxi, because it was another 4 or 5 miles. This huge, great Humber Super Snipe arrived and took me to the place where the car was, by which time I was left with 10 shillings to get home to Yorkshire. Of course, I dared turn round and say, oh, no, I'll never make it. I thought, well, we'll give it a try. I knocked on the door. Butler came to the door. Fortunately, he had a can of petrol. So I think it was nearly full, or getting on for full by the time I left. We pushed it down the drive, got it started, off we went. And I travelled across country somewhere near Bedford, and spent my last 10 shillings on some more petrol, and got to a place called Rushton in Northamptonshire, and the petrol's running out again. Came down this hill into Rushton, and there was an Austin dealership at the bottom of the hill. So I rolled the car into there and said, I want you to give me a quote for doing this, that, and all the things that are wrong with it. One of the things was that the starter ring had worn out, so you couldn't use a self-starter. I went out on the road, walked up this hill, put my thumb up. First car that came past picked me up, and I've never hitched out before or since. This bloke picked me up, took me home, gave me tea, and I said, look, at school they give you a ticket, a railway ticket. Well, they don't give you it; it goes on the school bill. But I did have a ticket from King's Cross to Wakefield.
Yeah.
For the railway. I said, if I can get to Peterborough, I can get home on the train.
Yeah.
He says, well, I'll take you on the road towards Peterborough, and if we wave somebody down, they may carry on the rest of the journey with you.
Yeah.
In the end, he took me all the way to Peterborough, this guy. And, we exchanged Christmas cards for years after that. I mean, I cannot believe there are some Christopher's on the road, and he was one. Hey, I got to Wakefield, got a taxi home, which was about 15 miles to house, knocked on the door. Father came to the door, said, would you mind paying for the taxi? And that was it. Until the following Friday, when my mother took me down to Rushden in her Hillman Minx. Well, I drove most of the way, obviously, because I was driving by then. And she just told them I had to throw it away.
Yeah.
So that was it.
That was the Austin
That was the end. That was it.
So from there, I mean, you became a cameraman. So what was the journey from the Austin Seth?
Well, my father, as I said, was an insurance broker.
Yeah.
Because he wanted to follow me. He wanted me to follow in his footsteps. I became an insurance broker. It was the very last job I should have been doing. He never recognised my creative side.
Yeah.
I was an artist. I was all sorts of things, but I wasn't an insurance broker. Except I turned out to be a very good one.
Yeah.
And in 1969, having been involved at that point by 7 years in club motorsport,
yeah,
I've become president of the Yorkshire Sports Car Club. All of which is an interesting story, but it's not the point at this stage. He sold the business.
Yeah.
And I was even more successful in the new business.
Yeah.
I ended up running their Birmingham office as managing director. And my previous boss in Yorkshire, I created this insurance scheme for classic cars. Once again, the creative side.
Yeah.
And he said he wasn't interested in it. Would I take it with me? So I took the scheme with me. It was with Royal Insurance. And the guy in Birmingham who ran the claims department was a guy called Peter Footman.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I said, Peter, would you look after this for me? Because, I was rather busy looking after the 50 staff and getting this business together after the previous managing director had jumped ship and was trying to sink us.
Yeah.
And he did. And he had a mate called Peter James, and that's Footman James.
So that's Footman James, one of the most famous classic car insurance companies going.
And they're now both multimillionaires. If I stuck to being an insurance broker, no doubt I would have been a multi. But I didn't. So having done about 3-4 years in Birmingham and triple the profit over 3 years, I'd become seriously involved in computers because they were the thing. Microprocessors had just started. I started a computer company for insurance brokers with the backing of my employers.
Yeah.
And that was sort of half successful. And at that point, I started a video production company.
Right. I conclude you've been interested in photography and film for a long while.
I had an 8mm camera. I made films.
Basically for your own pleasure and enjoyment.
Strictly amateur. And for the club, you showed them at the motor club and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But yes, it was mostly families on holiday and stuff.
Yeah. So, from that and doing it for the car clubs, what led you on to doing it, want more than better term, for a living?
Well, the broker Microsystems, the computer company, wasn't doing that well, and I didn't really have much choice. I had to make my living out of the video production side.
Yeah.
We started off making...
Was it just you, or did you start to employ people?
I started to employ people, and we originally started with a series called The Jaguar Story, and we were trying to sell it, or in fact rent it, on Philips 1500 recorders, which cost an earth.
Yeah.
The tapes were on 1-inch thick tapes, and they were so expensive. People, having watched the program each month, used to send them back so we could record next month's program on the same tape.
The good old days of recording over what you'd recorded, like cassettes, exactly like that.
And that wasn't going too well. So in 1980 we decided, or 79 it was, we decided to film the RAC rally. In those days, anybody who was in the public domain, anybody could go and film the rally. And it went on from there, up until the point of about 1983, I think it was, we were doing all the World Championship. We had distributors in Europe, distributors in the UK.
I mean, how did all this develop? Because, I mean, from doing amateur to doing it professionally, I mean, to sell all these films.
Well, it was a question of learning on the job, honestly. I had no professional training. You learn by your own mistakes.
Yeah.
And we were selling, I don't know what the numbers were now, but, you know, in the low thousands each rally we did. We did the British Open Championship every year, and we did the World Championship. And as I say, we had to save us the business of copying and duplicating and packing and posting.
Yeah.
We had a UK distributor and a European distributor.
Yeah.
And ironically, I think it was August 83, both of them closed or went bust or whatever in the same month.
Oh.
So our guaranteed income to do each round of the World Championship was gone.
Yeah.
And so I had to find employment pretty quickly. We had a very good period. I think we sold, between that period and Christmas that year, I think we sold £20,000 worth of VHS videos, which wasn't bad going, you know.
No. Well, back then, I mean, that was quite a chunk of change, really, wasn't it?
So I got a job as number 2 at Screen Sport, which didn't exist as a channel.
Yeah.
But I was responsible partly for bringing it into existence.
Yeah.
And that's when I became a broadcaster. Once again, with no broadcasting talent, but I got on well with the Bob Kennedy, who was the prime man behind Screen Sport.
Yeah.
We opened studios in Cheshire, in Knutsford. I moved to live in Cheshire. And that's a story which goes on through to live transmissions from Le Mans. I was obviously involved in the motorsport side particularly.
Yeah.
Did lots of interviews in the studio, so on and so forth. Through good years.
Yeah.
Then W.H. Smith took over the business and moved the whole lot down to London. And effectively from then onwards, I became freelance, but I was earning more with them as a freelance than I was as a salaried person.
Yeah.
But it brought me in touch with people who wanted to go on and get their sport or whatever it might be on Screen Sport. And I then take a particular example. John Welsh, who was very much high up in British Rallycross at the time, said, can we get the British Championship on Screen Sport?
Yeah.
And he was responsible for getting some sponsorship together, and I formed a new production company called the World Action Sports Productions. And then we went to the Rallycross years and did Rallycross for 3, 4, 5, 6 years in the early 90s.
I conclude at this time, were the TV main broadcasters buying from you or doing whatever, like ITV or BBC? Were they taking footage off you?
No. The only connection I have was in the VTV days. I think we did the tour of Ypres, and we did a report for TVAM.
Oh, yeah.
And I had a very strong competitor who was supplying ITV, a chap called Barry Hinchcliffe, who's no longer with us. And he didn't like competition. And he was unionised. And, of course, those were the days when, the main broadcasters were unionised. And if you weren't in the union, you didn't really stand much of a chance.
Well, that was like the days like with still photography. Unless you were in the, NUJ, no matter how good the photograph was, they wouldn't use it because they would use a poor image from an NUJ member.
Yeah. At TVAM, were determined to get round that sort of thing. They weren't going to be bound by what... I can't remember the name of the union ones now. We're going to say or not.
Yeah.
And they took our reports, but once again, the union got at us somehow or other, and that finished. So, no, I wasn't. Apart from that brief flurry with TVAM, I was never involved with mainstream broadcast at all.
Right. So most of what you shot then, where was it broadcast?
Well, later on, when we got onto the long distance rallies, the Peking Paris, around the world in 80 days and such, we were distributed to people like the History Channel, the Travel Channel, Prime in New Zealand, History Channel in the United States, basically to cable channels, satellite channels.
Yeah. I mean, back then, cable wasn't really known in the UK, was it? I mean, the UK just had the standard, what you might call standard 3, BBC 1, BBC 2 and ITV.
Well, Screen Sport was on cable to begin with.
Yeah.
But there was sort of like 60,000 people connected at the very early point, and they were mostly in Southampton.
Yeah.
I think the networks were owned by Robert Maxwell.
Oh, yeah.
Southampton and somewhere else, but it gradually spread. I mean, for me to check up that we were on air and had a signal, I had a 6-foot dish in my garden.
Yeah.
Picked a signal up, and that was a very exciting time. I remember it was installed just before Christmas one year, and we watched people doing Christmas shopping in Chicago live through CNN. And that opened up a whole new world.
Yeah. Well, that'd be like the first days of the early days of satellite television, really, wouldn't it? Because, I mean, until then, it was what came through your aerial.
Yeah, well, in those days, you had to have a 6-foot dish.
Yeah.
It was, I think, 88 before the Intelsat started. Eutelsat came on, which was a much stronger signal, and people could put a dish on their own home, a small dish, a 2-foot dish or whatever, and bring a satellite signal straight into the house.
Yeah.
And then we had the famous square reel from
squareals, yes, I remember those.
BSB. We did a season of sports news for BSB.
Yeah.
Did all the football, rugby, league, cricket, and so on in the north of England.
Yeah.
But that contract only lasted a year.
Yeah.
I made more money that year than any year. I think that was 1991 or something like that.
Now, I mean, were you filming, or what were you doing? I mean, with the motorsport, were you behind the camera? Were you directing, or?
I didn't do very much camera work. I do more now than I did then. I was producer, really. I was hiring cameramen, hiring editors, writing, hiring voiceover artists. You name it. We weren't a one-man band by any manner of means.
Whereabouts were you based then?
VTV, which was the early video production side, we're based in Bradford.
Oh, right.
Originally in Halifax, then we moved to Bradford, very near to Pennine Radio.
Yeah.
And World Action Sports, obviously by then I'd moved to Cheshire. That was based in Cheshire.
Yeah. And so I conclude you would employ crews of a camera. I mean, back then, I mean, these days, you need an iPhone or a similar smartphone, and you can more or less do your own production. I mean, back then you'd have to have a cameraman, a sound guy.
Well, we could just about manage without a sound guy.
Yeah.
But a cameraman, I mean, the recorder was a big heavy box on the ground. The camera was connected to it by an umbilical cord.
Tripod or shoulder mount.
Tripods. We didn't have any shoulder mount. No, it was a tripod. Oh, yes, as I say, shoulder mount. I suppose it was a 2-man team out on the events.
Yeah.
And then your editor and so on back at base.
Because, of course, back then, once they'd done the filming, they'd have to travel back to wherever for it all to be sorted. I mean, they won't be able to edit on the spot as you can now.
No, nothing like that. In the BSB days, it was still only a cameraman who was a full-time employee. I wasn't hiring freelancers in. I paid him, an annual salary.
Yeah.
And me and a reporter, but the reporter was paid directly by the company, so that was just me and the cameraman.
Yeah.
Plus, to counteract what you just said, plus we had a Nissan Prairie, I think it was.
Oh, yeah.
And in the back of that, we had an edit suite.
All right.
Which was mains part, so I had to have a generator sat outside. So whilst we're Wigan Rugby League, I'd be editing the highlights from the first half, whilst the second half was going on. So we had a bit to play out down the line to London when just after the match was finished. And I was busy editing one evening when the power suddenly went down. And this bloke had come up and pinched my generator, and he was running across the car park with the generator still running. And he got to a housing estate on the edge of the car park and realised he wasn't going to get much further with it, so he dropped it.
Yeah.
And I picked it up, brought it back to the van, and carried on the edit.
But it's still running.
Well, I stopped it. Well, I stopped it whilst I walked back with it, but yeah, it was still running when he dropped it. Oh, what stories!
Well, I mean, back then with the rallying and the motorsport, and I mean, I can always remember the famous Barry Gill reports from the rallies and things like that. You'd have become involved with some of the big names and the big teams. I conclude you get to know them because in motorsport, a cameraman who's there all the time or a reporter, the drivers eventually get to know and become friends.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and of course, certainly in rallying, I wasn't doing motor racing to any great extent. I wasn't at all, really. Everybody was accessible.
Yeah.
One of the problems was language quite often because Stig Blomqvist could only manage to say, and Marco Elaine's English was a bit Italianized. It was Finnish stroke Italian stroke English.
Yeah.
But they were all good. Very good years. And each rally was subtly different from the next.
Well, I mean, the back then, and I've said this many times, we used to have the famous RAC rally, which has now been, shall we say, castrated down to a rally of the little bit of South Wales, and it doesn't even figure anymore in the championships. Back then, the rallies, especially if staying in the UK, the RACs, were serious 4 or 5 day events covering the entirety of the country.
Yeah, and it was the biggest spectator event in the country.
Yeah.
Sponsored by Lombard, of course, in those days. We had Welsh Forest, Scottish Forest, Yorkshire Forest, you name it. It was a great event.
Yeah. And how many people did you have out on that? Or was it just one crew?
One crew only.
Right.
I mean, we were only aiming to make 30, 40 minutes out of a 5-day RAC, so you didn't need dozens of crews.
Yeah.
There wasn't room to take the stuff.
And then you'd be, even though you're only after 40 minutes, you'd be off down the stages. I mean, I conclude the organisers were, you always could do back then. You could get before the event something that told you where they were going, when you would be there. So it would be a constant state of catch-up, or would it be a case of we'll film up that stage, we'll leave those 2 stages out, and we'll go about down to that one to give us some time?
Yeah, that's the sort of people. And very often, you could walk in from the end. You didn't need to lock yourself in for the whole duration of the rally. Walk in from the end, do the last corner, maybe the first 40 cars, then move on.
Yeah. Because that's the one thing I found about modern-day rally coverage. If it's to be believed, there's only about 4 cars taking part. And it's all this, that we could call run-and-gun coverage, these, PlayStation-type coverage of things. And to my mind, modern rally coverage is terrible.
Well, if you go onto some of the channels on YouTube that show rally crashes,
yeah,
you'll find that there are loads of blokes, number 32 and number 67, number 8, on World Championship events that you never see on television, crashing all day long.
You were saying you had access, because I conclude besides the actual action footage, you'd be recording interviews with them. I know you said a lot of the language wasn't, not so much it was foul language, but because they didn't speak as much English then. I mean, did you have drivers that you sought out? You think, he's still in, we need to go and talk to him because he'll give us a good, like Tony Ponza, Russell Brooks, or Jimmy McRae?
Not especially, no. I think that I can figure out people who were difficult. Hanno Mikkola wasn't very easy.
Yeah.
Ari Vatanen was absolutely marvellous.
Yeah.
But
providing he hadn't crashed.
But yeah, and having done the stages, one needs one of the key parts of making those films was to get to the service stations where you could get some interviews done.
Now, I just wanted that was the one thing. Service was at the side of the road, the use of the motorway services, so they will be easier to get at in many.
Exactly. Yeah.
And how much of this were you involved with? Were you still sat in an office?
No, I was out on.
You were out there
every time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Latterly, in probably that last year of '83, I didn't do all the World Championship events. I had a guy working with me who was sort of number 2 in the organisation, and he would go and do an event off possibly with his girlfriend sometimes. I remember him doing New Zealand and Portugal when I wasn't there. So that last year I didn't do all the events.
Yeah.
And that was the year when we had the money to do them all.
Yeah.
For the first time. And then wasn't after the Group B fiasco, and they all came to an end.
Which was, of course, when poor Henry Toivonen and Sergio Cresto were killed in the Lancia.
Exactly.
On Corsica.
Yeah. After that period, we got to the Group A period, and then the FIA decided to get involved and decided to
make a mess of it.
Claim the rights.
Yeah.
And in Britain, Bernie Eccleston was, on behalf of the FIA, effectively controlling the rights to the RAC Rally, would you believe?
Yeah.
We never had any serious problems, but, you had to go through a new hoop all of a sudden, which you hadn't had to do before. But anybody now, I would suspect, who wants to produce a broadcast, a main terrestrial broadcast coverage of a World Championship rally for the FIA or the WRC as they call themselves, wouldn't have a chance.
Yeah,
because it's all
stitched up.
Yeah, stitched up. That's the word.
I think the problem with it, I mean, you won't have the problems then. It's like you said, you didn't go through anybody to do it as such. You'd be able to talk to drivers who'd be able to say what they want. I mean, that's the one thing you notice with the modern racing driver, the modern rally driver. There's always somebody from a media team with them, watching what they say, listening to the questions. Back then, you'd have drivers who'd express an opinion, good or bad.
Absolutely, yes. I think my best opinion I was doing interviews for Radio Le Mans, at Classic Le Mans one year, in fact, the last time I did it. And I was interviewing Adrian Newey.
Oh, yeah.
In the build-up paddock, the holding paddock before the race. And he was...
C-grid, as it's now called.
Is it? All right. So I'm out of date.
Yeah.
He was driving a GT40, and there was a panoply of Ferraris and Maseratis and God knows what lying in front of us, everybody waiting to go out onto the grid. And I said, which of these cars would you like to take home, Adrian?
Yeah.
Most of all. And he said, mine. So that was the end of that question.
Yeah.
It went and smashed it up. In the race, it was a write-off. I think it did get it repaired, but it was a serious accident.
Yeah. I mean, that was the mention of Le Mans. I mean, you were saying you did rallies and things like that. Which did you prefer to film rallying? I mean, I suppose the beauty of motorsport, circuit racing is they're there. If you don't get them this time round, give it a couple of minutes and it'll come round again, all being well. Rallying, of course, they're here, there and everywhere. Which did you prefer yourself or were bothered?
By a long way rallying, because it's photographically much more interesting.
Yeah.
You've got scenery involved.
But most of the time they're trying to avoid.
Exactly.
So, I mean, with Le Mans, Radio Le Mans, how did that come about?
Do you know, I don't really recall. It was run by some northeastern Tynesider, I think, judging by his accent. And I was simply approached, and for one reason or another, my car wasn't running properly at the time or whatever. And I went with my mother's Golf with a mate of mine from Screen Sport, and we did Radio Le Mans.
Yeah.
And I think the following year, Screen Sport did Le Mans Live, and I was involved in that for 4 or 5 years, and that really was good fun. I was the fax man.
All right.
I would sit in the scanner van, which is where the control was done. And, of course, in those days, Screen Sport was going out in 4 languages, German, Dutch, French and English. And I had my own little computer there, and I was feeding facts to the commentator, telling how many times this driver had done that, or who won 50 years ago, or all those sorts of things. That was fascinating work.
I mean, you'd be sat there with a load of books or some computers or something else, I conclude, back then. Now you can just Google it all straight away.
Yeah. I don't know how good the Google is in France, but I've never Googled in France.
And as a rule, Le Mans is, more often than not, it's nice weather at Le Mans, even though I have been there in torrential conditions. But the one thing about Le Mans is, even though you're working, it's a very happy atmosphere as Le Mans.
Yeah.
Or was this something you were able to, shall we say, capitalise on? Had you to be careful that you to remind yourself you were working and you weren't there to enjoy yourself?
No, it's quite difficult not to enjoy oneself. As you say, it's a very happy atmosphere. And we used to rent every year a little farmhouse down the road. It was quite a long way away, actually, 20 minutes away. And we even had set up a little edit suite there so we could do pieces to insert into the programme the following day. And we all used to go down, when our shift ended, obviously it was in shifts for the 24-hour race. Nobody was doing it for the full 24 hours. But during the build-up days when we're covering qualifying and so forth, and after qualifying, we'd all go down to the house and have a great barbecue evening or whatever. So that really was good fun. And if I remember rightly, the place was owned by a butcher in Le Mans.
Yeah.
And they had a flat over a butcher's shop in Le Mans. So for the Le Mans weekend, they go and live in their flat and leave their house to us.
Yeah.
And they left a load of andouillettes, which are French sausages,
Yes.
for us to barbecue whilst he was away.
Well, it's the one big thing about Le Mans is that there's the camping, but a lot of the properties roundabout, as you said, a lot of the owners will up sticks and disappear and rent their properties out for the fans. Some of the chateaus, the teams rent and everything else. I mean, they always say it's the biggest bank holiday the British enjoy. It just happens to be in France, but it's an incredible place to be.
It is. And it's continuing to this very day. It doesn't lose its impact. One of the reasons we were so closely involved then, Mark McCormack, the golfer, started this company called IMG, International Management Group.
Yeah.
And they had a spin-off sports management company, and they had the rights from the ACO, the Automobile Club de West, who ran them all, to market the TV rights to the race.
Yeah.
And a guy called Buzz Hornet, a good name, was their TV man, and we got to know him very closely at Screen Sport because he was supplying us other events, stuff that was coming in from the States and so on and so forth. And Buzz would actually go to Le Mans and handle the TV rights there and then.
Yeah.
And so we had a very close relationship with it. We didn't have to deal with the organisers because Buzz was there as our intermediary, as it were, which made life a lot easier.
Paul Hargreaves, thanks very much. We've come to the end of part one of your interview. When we come back, we'll be discussing some of your long-distance drives, Peking, Paris, all sorts of things throughout the world. But initially, thanks very much for joining me for part one of the Backseat Driver radio show.
Rarely beaten on price, never beaten on service. Whether it's cars, bikes or commercials, Hodder Tyres are the best in the business. And when it comes to tyre expertise and advice to supplying the correct tyres for your vehicle's specific requirements, nobody comes close to David Lakin and the Hodder Tyres team. So give them a call on 01200 613 192 or visit the website at hoddertyres.co.uk.